Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. A Clockwork Orange is a 1971 film that was adapted, produced, and directed by Stanley Kubrick, based on a novel from 1962 by Anthony Burgess. It employs disturbingly violent images to comment on psychiatry, juvenile delinquency, youth gangs, and other social, political, and economic subjects in Britain in the near future. Now, I don't know how many of you are fans of Stanley Kubrick's way of directing, but I have trouble with a lot of his films. Not in the way they're done, but just in their subject matter. But no one can say that he's not an excellent director. You'll never see better camera work and use of camera lenses that just suck you into the film itself. I'm always just intrigued looking at the process that he used to make his films. This one opened in New York City on December 19, 1971, and it was released in the United Kingdom on the 13th of January, 1972. It was met with polarized views from the critics and was controversial due to its depiction of graphic violence. The protagonist in the film, Alex, is an ultra-violent youth in futuristic Britain. As with all luck, his eventually runs out, and he's arrested and convicted of murder. While in prison, Alex learns of an experimental program in which convicts are programmed to detest violence. If he goes through the program, his sentence will be reduced, and he'll be back on the streets sooner than expected. But Alex's ordeals are far from over once he hits the streets of Britain. One of the most iconic scenes in the film is when Malcolm McDowell's character, he's the one that played Alex, is being forced to watch film for long periods of time. His eyes are strapped open so that he can't shut them in order to make him view these violent acts. When filming was done on these scenes, they had to anesthetize his eyes for these torture scenes, because without it, it would be too painful for him to endure. Nevertheless, his corneas repeatedly got scratched by the metal lid locks that held his eyes open. The doctor standing over Alex as he's being forced to watch violent films was a real doctor, ensuring that his eyes didn't dry up too much during this scene. When Alex performs Singing in the Rain as he attacks the writer and his wife, this wasn't scripted at all. Stanley Kubrick spent 4 days experimenting with different things for this scene, finding all of them too conventional. Eventually, he approached Malcolm and asked him if he could dance. They tried the scene again, and this time with McDowell dancing and singing the only song that he could remember. The director Kubrick was so amused and happy with the scene that he swiftly bought the rights to Singing in the Rain for $10,000 so it could be used in the film. The actor McDowell was hurt when, after he and Stanley Kubrick had had such a close relationship during the filming, that Kubrick seemed uninterested in continuing their friendship after the film. McDowell later attributed some of that sentiment to his being a younger actor, unfamiliar with the intimacy of the filmmaking process. But he did admit that it was very upsetting to him at the time. McDowell remained good friends with Kubrick's wife and would often visit her after his death, where they would have a good cry at his gravesite. Now, the fact that he sang Singing in the Rain disgusted Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly and McDowell met at a party several years later, and the older star turned and walked away in disgust from him. He was deeply upset about the way his signature song from Singing in the Rain from 1952 had been portrayed in this film. Initially, when he was offered the part of Alex, Malcolm McDowell mistakenly thought that the director of the film was Stanley Kramer. It wasn't until one of his friends told him that this was actually Stanley Kubrick from 2001's Space Odyssey fame that the actor realized who the director really was. Now, people have wondered for years where the title came from. According to the author of the book, Anthony Burgess, it came from an East London slang derived from a phrase that was as queer as a Clockwork Orange. But in reality, most people think that Burgess invented the phrase himself. Burgess was raised a strict Roman Catholic, and when he originally wrote his novel, he wrote it as a parable about Christian free will and forgiveness. His take on it was that to be a true Christian, one had to forgive the most horrifying acts, something Burgess knew only too well, having seen his wife be assaulted and beaten during World War II. This attack resulted in a miscarriage and a lifetime of gynecological troubles for his wife. Now, there were two crimes that prompted Stanley Kubrick to have this film withdrawn from viewing in the United Kingdom. One of them was the assault of a young Dutch girl in 1973 at the hands of men singing in the Rain. And the second was the violence of a 16-year-old boy who had beaten a younger child while wearing Alex's uniform of white overalls and a black bowler hat, plus combat boots. After it was cited for these copycat acts, it was withdrawn from the British cinemas at Kubrick's behest, and it was also banned in several other countries. In the years following, though, the film underwent a critical reevaluation, and it gained a complete cult following. Now, the filming of the assault scene where they break into the house and assault the writer and his wife, this shoot was so difficult for the original actress that was cast in that role that she just up and quit. The part was then recast with Adrienne Corey, who was said to have been furious about the large number of takes that Stanley Kubrick required, feeling that the whole thing should have been done swiftly, but it wasn't. This actress was really game for showing her body on screen, and she wasn't disturbed by it at all. She thought it was a difficult role to play, but being in her birthday suit during the filming wasn't a problem. She even joked with the other cast members prior to the filming as a way to lighten the event by telling everybody on the set that they would be able to see that she was actually a natural redhead and that the carpet matched the drapes in her case. It definitely caught Malcolm McDowell off guard when he was told that. Take a look at this film. It's definitely worth watching. It's kind of a tough one to view, but it's very well done. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.